Welcome to the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi After the Show podcast, our audio podcast, and of course our video one on YouTube. And this is our first chance to really dive into Stranger Things since we've been back from vacation. A lot of people have. By the way, there are spoilers here. If for some reason you're one who has not seen
the finale.
Season 5 and the finale and all of that,
we're going to go there.
What are you waiting on?
We don't like to tell you to, not listen, but,
New Year's Eve, we were about to watch it, and I knew what time it was coming on, and Murphy was like lackadaisical in the kitchen going, we can start when we want to. And I'm like, it's time to start now. Please, we have to start now. And you were like, let's make a sandwich.
Yeah.
Well, it was on demand. Right, exactly.
I was ready.
Yeah, I know you were ready for it. But there are spoilers here, just so you know, as we dive in.
I want to say this. There has never been a show that I've been so interested in and sat through that I didn't understand everything that was going on. If I don't understand things, I'm usually out. That's the reason I'm not a Star Wars person. Yeah. I didn't get it the first time, and so my heart's not in it. Yeah. But there are things that I have questions about, but I still was watching everything. In fact, over the holidays, we watched season 5 all the way up until the last one, until New Year's Eve. We watched it, I think, a couple of times. We went back and watched the 4 episodes.
Yeah, Jodi and I went back and we watched the ones that the Duffer Brothers recommended, which was actually very helpful.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
I wish I'd have done that, honestly,
earlier
at Thanksgiving, when it all came, because it would have been easier to follow.
Right.
But yeah.
So do you also feel that way? That you don't really understand everything?
I'm not totally confused. Okay, I understand how it wrapped up. I got it.
Right.
We got to the point where it wrapped. Okay, good, it's over. But the I don't know if it was the Christmas Eve or the final episode where, okay, who's in the Upside Down right now?
Yeah.
It's because there were groups in the Upside Down and groups on normal, and then all of a sudden they'd switch it up and these people were in the and it's like, what are we doing here? I thought some of those Christmas Eve episodes, those Christmas Day ones, were a little long.
Okay.
It could have just been, okay, let's get to the point here.
Okay.
But that was...
I didn't feel that way. I mean, you've got all the time in the world. You're streaming.
I agree with you, though. I was very confused a lot of times.
So
really?
Murphy gets it, which is strange to me.
Honestly, I think that the Duffer Brothers just took some liberties in the writing, shortcuts, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I have not seen any feedback at all on
There's some hate
socials
online, which
about
I haven't dug into. I don't care.
And, because it's always going to be difficult. Any show that is so iconic when it comes to its conclusion, the ending is never 100% satisfying.
The ending is the hardest part of any story told anyway. If you're standing in front of a group of a classroom and you're telling a story, the ending is the hardest part.
Right.
Ask Seinfeld, ask Game of Thrones. The ending is the hardest part, and you never please people with an ending.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost ever.
And, the one thing that, if I hadn't seen the interview with the Duffer Brothers and Jimmy Fallon, I might not have been thinking about this. But Jimmy Fallon asked them at the beginning in season 1, did you know how this was going to end? And their answer was no.
Yeah.
They didn't really know where they were ultimately going to go with it. So I felt that the final episode kind of meandered a little bit. And it was odd. And again, I love it. I'm fanatical. I'm very satisfied. It was great. But the peak of season 5, the peak of the final episode was actually in the middle of the episode.
It was.
And then
when there was an hour left.
Right.
There was
when
an hour
when
left.
it tried to show you, where things were from that point forward,
it became less
man.
exciting and more sappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the after the climax, it should have been about 10 or 15 minutes.
Agreed.
Here's how it wrapped up. They all graduated, and Elle went poof. Hey, we're done.
A couple of things I want to bring to this. I really knew that somebody would be self-sacrificial. I didn't know that it would be 11. I thought it would be Hopper. I thought Hopper is going to give it all up and save those kids and die.
Well, and that's kind of the way they set up the beginning of season 5.
I know, and I would have, as much as I loved him, I would have been okay with that. So, but for her to be the one to be self-sacrificial, we think, was crazy. When they were in the basement at the end of the episode, when the episode was going too slowly, and they were trying to give you a conclusion.
Yeah.
In their defense, the Duffer Brothers were trying to give you closure with those kids that you've spent so much time with. So I understand that. I thought that was really beautiful to bring them back into the basement.
Yeah.
Playing the game, which is how it began. Yes. I loved that. I almost expected for 11 to be hiding in there somewhere and like Mike stowing her away. I literally thought he was going to bring her out when he started telling the story about her. I was like, yeah, she's there. But whatever.
Well, and when you had the older siblings sitting on top of the radio station, the squawk,
That was
having their
strange.
conversation. But I think that they were trying to separate the older from the younger, and trying to put everybody in a perspective of here's what happened after the
That went
Upside
on
Down
too long. Yeah.
When they were on the roof of the radio station, I was just thinking of what's the movie, the Brat Pack movie?
Yeah.
St. Elmo's Fire.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The way they were dressed and talking and had a beer. And
Oh,
it's
I didn't
like,
think about
here
that.
we
That's
go,
funny.
St. Elmo's Fire.
And that could have been the homage to that. I mean,
Yeah.
because the
Maybe.
Duffer Brothers have done so much of that, for
Yeah.
retro movies from the 80s. But, again, I don't envy their position. That's a lot of pressure to try to come up with something that is going to be the absolute
No, you're never going to
perfect
please
ending.
everybody.
I do think, though, that the door is not been. I know that you did that in Hollywood Outsider today, Jody, about
Spinoff.
a spinoff possibility. But to me, sequel possibilities are there.
Of course.
It was definitely left open ended, even though they brought it to conclusion. Did y'all feel that way? I felt that when it got to the end,
I felt
with the scene with Elle, I thought that's like,
these
okay,
kids
this leaves it open.
have a conclusion. But what we saw with Al at the end is Mike's imagination. It doesn't mean it's real.
Or so we think.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
What-
and I think that's the question mark that they may want to leave there. You
Of course
believe that
they-
it was fully his imagination?
I don't think she's coming back to play
Wait,
11.
yeah, that's the
ever
thing.
again.
They take the biggest character from the show, and it's like, I don't know that she's going to come back for a spinoff.
No.
Or sequel.
Right.
No.
She may not, but they have left the doors open to me for some involvement
Well,
of some theme. in the
what I've
future.
read doing the Hollywood Outsider sort of research was that yes, there will be they're working on writing a spinoff that would come to Netflix, but it would be different kids and set in the 90s instead of the 80s. Man, I can't wait for that because the way they do retro is not. They do retro that makes you feel like you're really there. They don't overdo. It's not when they did the 80s, it wasn't a bunch of neon and overdone. It was the way the 80s actually really was. And they didn't bring all of the
All the cliches.
pop culture cliches.
Yeah.
They went deeper. That's why the candy you barely remembered boppers made a hit, made an appearance instead of something that was just obvious. They didn't go obvious with all of it. It just felt really real. Even Holly's room. You guys don't know this because I was a little girl in the 80s. I was a girl in the 80s. Her room was like, oh my God. I had friends who had that wallpaper. Like I know that poster that was on her wall. Before the Demogorgon came in and got her. But one thing that I wanted that didn't happen, and maybe you would say this is cliche, but I wanted Nancy to end up with Steve. I really did. When it was like that love triangle, I did not want her to end up with Jonathan anyway. I just didn't think they were a fit, but I really did want her to end up with Steve.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's just like still searching, I don't like that.
No, Steve's a playboy, so
Yeah.
he didn't need that.
He didn't
right
look
now.
like a coach playboy to me, but
The coach thing, yeah, I didn't get that one.
I know. The valedictorian thing at graduation was fun with that character.
How did how
Dustin?
did Max graduate when she was in a coma for like a year and a half?
Good question.
Okay,
But it was right to have her there.
yeah, well, yeah,
It was good to have her there.
Those were the kind of the little things that had me like, okay, you left that hole open. I know they can't cover everything,
No.
but like Derek's family when they tied them all up in the barn.
Right. What happened to them?
Derek was at the graduation. Where was his family?
Right,
Maybe his
yeah.
family didn't remember it. I had a
Yeah,
big.
there were some of those things that were never brought to conclusion. Honestly, you never really, saw. I know they said 18 months later, but you never saw them exit the Upside Down. I don't think you actually saw them
Yeah,
exit.
they
I mean,
exited when they saw 11 go back in.
well, yeah, but I don't remember them. They were there. I think the scene cut and they were there, right? They didn't actually physically.
I don't remember.
You didn't see them
We
leaving.
got to watch it again. We've only watched it the one time. And when
yeah.
with something that's a finale with so much at play, you almost have to watch it again. Think about the things we've read again or watched again, and you pick up more.
Yeah.
Harry Potter is a good example. I learn something new every time I ever read or watch that again. So Stranger Things is the same way. So my question after having watched it one time, and if you are watching this or listening to this, please comment and let us know what you think. What was in the suitcase? What was that stone that messed
the
Henry
moon
up
rock
so
or
much?
whatever it was?
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what started all of it. That's what's in the sky. Is it not? That's what I want to know. What is that? And I asked Murphy because he's been the answer man since we started this years ago.
Yeah, but
and
it
you were
went-
like, I don't know.
It went beyond my comprehension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only thing about the final couple of episodes. this is partially because I'm just not the world's biggest sci-fi fan, and it went really sci-fi.
Me either.
Towards the end. Well, I mean, all of the conclusion was like total sci-fi, and although I was into it, I mean, I really thought all of those scenes, of the final battles and all those things were cool.
Yeah.
But it just went way deeper into sci-fi than I thought, it would. And even though those were exciting scenes to watch, to me, when you go back to the beginning of the series, the things that you couldn't see were the things that were the most suspenseful or that drew you in, the not knowing and all of those. And obviously, I know the only way to bring it to conclusion is you've got to know.
Yeah.
But all the pieces really didn't connect perfectly.
They
And
don't.
so I did feel a little bit lost in the way that all that played
There's
out.
the Upside Down. There's the Mind Flayer. There's Elle and the lab and Henry being there and tricking her her making him what he was.
And wormholes and time change. Yeah.
The big final battle, where she got rid of him. Where were all the Demogorgons? Where were all his people?
I think that when you get rid of him, they also weaken.
Well, before they got rid of him, though. I mean, while they were fighting, it's like usually he had his things
army
around helping fight everybody else.
See, I don't know. I need to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I think
were they on vacation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all the things that they were talking about with the flames and that you start to all the things that you would take out that looked like the octopus tentacles, any of those things that were the hive mind, I guess is what they call that. Once you started to impact that, I don't know. And maybe it's all made up anyway. Maybe it doesn't matter.
There was a while where you couldn't step on the tentacles or the.
Oh, I was going to talk about that.
But then by the last episode,
you're all over it.
All over. Who cares? Let's just step on.
Yeah. To me, that's the future of haunted houses. There's going to be a Stranger Things room in haunted houses coming up this year, later in the year, and you're going to have to not want to step on those things. And these things are going to be floating through the air, and the clocks are going to be floating and going dung. There's so much there. There's so much. There's got to be Stranger Things haunted houses on the way.
If you did this, Jody, but I went back and started thinking about Game of Thrones. And Game of Thrones, even though people had an issue with a person who died in the final episode, I thought Game of Thrones was like, okay, that's the way to wrap up a series.
I had no problem with the way Game of Thrones wrapped up. I know the rest of the world did.
Yeah. This, I just felt Stranger Things they could have probably condensed it a little. Although I did like the fact that it was 2-hour episode or an hour and a half.
Yeah. It seemed to go on too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt it just went from a different energy. Once the climactic part of it happened, there was a whole other hour. And that hour felt like a drama instead of a sci-fi adventure.
And I don't know if you watch a lot of movies and you think about this stuff, but it's like, okay, I looked at it and it's like, there's an hour left and he's dead. That means we're not done.
Right.
That means that something is going to pop up that they thought they took care of.
That's what I was waiting for.
And it never came. And it's like, and everybody lived happily ever after.
Well, there's a lot of characters that they wanted to give you closure on. That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's all I think. But, just like the guys who gave us the TV show Game of Thrones, the Duffer Brothers are probably like in hiding now. Like they just want to stop. They're just tired.
Tired of hearing
They're under a rock. They're in the Upside Down. They don't want to hear all the hate because it wasn't less than an hour after it was over. We were going to bed and I was scrolling my phone, sending our kids Happy New Year. And I was like, Stranger Things fans hate on the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not getting drawn into that. Storytelling is a lot harder than people. If you're only a consumer of it, you can't know how hard it is to write something that is satisfactory.
And that everybody is anticipating.
Yeah.
Right.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
And I think that they know that. They know that probably, better than anybody else when they were sitting in the writing room trying to come up with the with the final solutions. You've got to insulate yourself from that because you're not going to please everybody.
Way. But shout out to of all things I've ever watched, and I do love fiction, and I do watch and read a lot. For me not to understand fully, but for you to keep my attention, bravo. Because if I don't understand, I'm out.
Yeah.
I will leave the room. I'm like, I'm going to go walk the dog.
I think the other thing that they really set the bar on, much like Mad Men did, is they built something authentic for the time period it was set in.
Yeah.
And when you read a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, they were painstaking about that. Every scene, little things that you might not have even seen whatsoever or eventually even got cut out of the camera shots were all these, faithful recreations or things that they had purchased that, were the original Gatorade bottles, all that kind of stuff that
The
retro
snacks.
that looked 80s. And they talked about how there were literally thousands of those things that they had wound up producing over time to make sure that it felt authentic in the background.
I don't know if there's a mistake in that show yet. Like, remember Game of Thrones accidentally had a water bottle
Oh,
in
yeah.
a Starbucks cup in a
Starbucks
shot
cup.
one time.
Yeah.
I know that Downton Abbey had a water bottle on a mantle one time. Like, what?
Yeah.
Just an accident of, being quick to be in production, and
Yeah.
it's a business. They're trying to get a show done in a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
I don't know that we saw any mistakes in it, but we'd have to go back again and watch it.
And but I'm going to spend time now with more of the behind the scenes, because I think that's to me that's just as fascinating as the show.
Oh yeah,
itself.
how they made it.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And the radio station, the Squawk, was actually patterned after an abandoned building that the Duffer Brothers were just a few miles away from in their hometown in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they actually. I watched the making of the set and the way that they built that set out. The internals of it were a set. The external, they built the facade and all that. Actually, though, out in a field in Georgia to replicate that radio station.
So cool.
But it's insane. It looks exactly like the radio station that they patterned it after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you go back and watch it, the kids are babies. Just be ready.
Yeah.
Season 1, those kids are babies.
Subscribe to the Murphy, Sam, and Jody podcast. Free and easy.